And I had to take that chance, you know, like I had to give myself the opportunity to explore that. And I think that's like, it's one of the things I look back at. People might say, you wasted your time. You spent the money on that class that you, like, if it wasn't going to suit you, then why did you even, you know? But I'm the kind of person that I needed that failure to be able to, like, say, okay, that's not it. Then what's next?
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Weapon X Holsters, quality handmade Kydex holsters made right here in Southern Utah. You can stop by the store, 1397 West Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We are back in the vault, another week straight, episode 56. So 56 straight weeks. Want to throw this in the beginning instead of the end. You know, if you feel the conversation is worth sharing with someone, please share it, like it. We do clips every day, so you'll see clips on social media. You can go in and like those, share those. We've actually had a couple of them go like, I don't know what like going viral means. Like, is there a certain point that you're viral, right? But we've had a couple that are into the millions. So it's kind of crazy to think that there's millions of people that have seen me sitting in our studio. Anyway, go share it, like it, comment. I loved the comments. We actually, some of those ones that went really big, there's hundreds of comments, and I've tried to go through those and kind of, you know, interact with people that are commenting. So I'm usually scrolling through those too. If you have something negative to write, that's fine, but I'll probably just delete you. But anyway, episode 56 today. We've got a longtime buddy, probably 11, 12 years. Yeah.
It's been a while.
This is my boy. This is Dr. Parker Tripp. How's it going, man?
Great.
This is going to be cool. You kind of have a cool story that we're going to get into, but mine and your relationship. So when I started dating Amanda, you were dating one of her best friends, Lindsay.
Yep.
And then, so that's how we met. And then you guys got married, we got married. And then just recently, so you went to Canada and did dentistry.
Yeah.
And just came back, what, couple months?
It's like 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks? Yeah.
Maybe 2 months. Yeah.
And so it's cool to like social media. I kept track of you on social media a little bit.
Yep.
And it really Lindsay.
Yeah.
And then you were like, hey, we're in St. George. So
dude, isn't it wild? Like thinking back about like 10, 12 years. Man, I just remember like we had the old Accord that like for years that thing was on its last legs, and thanks to people like you who are a lot smarter than me in a lot of different ways, we kind of kept that thing alive a lot longer than it probably should have been.
Stroked it,
kept alive. But yeah, that's crazy to look back at. Like, I mean, things are just very different.
Well, dude, I think in the grand scheme of things, when you're younger and people are like, dude, time just goes so fast. And you're like, dude, I'm 18. Like, this feels like it's taken forever to get to 18.
You go through the 4 years in high school, and you're like, these are the most important years of my life. And then you look back 5, 10 years later, and you're like, that's a little blip.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with people where they're like going through something and they're really struggling, and it could be a year or 2 years. And I'm like, dude, this is 2 years out of 80. Yeah. Like, this is such a small part of your life. Like, sure, you're going to learn lessons and have stories, but it's such a small part.
Yeah.
And 12 years down the road.
Being in the thick of it, though, is not comfortable.
Sure.
Looking back, like, it's definitely a lot more comfortable being on the other side of that than in the thick of the stress of, is my car going to get me to work today?
Well, I've had a couple younger kids work for me. And like Abe, I reference Abe all the time. And he's actually like pretty drama free. Like I really love Abe. I've had a couple other kids work for me, and they're in high school or after high school, and they're just going through some rough stuff like we all did.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, I get it. Like, yeah, that girl, you guys broke up, but I'm telling you, dude, in like 10 years, this is going to be so irrelevant.
You'll laugh
like,
at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, I was in the same shoes, man. Thought I was going to marry every girlfriend I had. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of funny. I mean, we're not even halfway through life, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, dude, give me a little backstory. Kind of, you can introduce Lindsay because I'm sure we'll reference her a little bit. So you can kind of give us a little bit of back history on her, and then we'll just dive into this thing.
Well, how far back do you like? So I grew up in Cedar City. That's like, I guess, the shortest way of saying that. Have an awesome family, like great upbringing. Played football and baseball in high school, and then left the country for 2 years. Spent some time in Ecuador, and then came back. Started my schooling at Dixie. Now Utah Tech.
Yeah.
And right before I started that, I had met Amanda in Cedar City and found out that she was going to be kind of doing some of her schooling in St. George. And I said, hey, I don't know anybody down there, but I'm going to be going down there. Let's get together. Okay. The first time that we got together was at Amanda's house. I kind of invited myself over.
We all did.
Yeah. And Lindsay happened to be there. And so to make a long story short, I asked Amanda the night after. I was like, "Hey, your friend Lindsay that was there last night, is she single?" And she's like, the response that I got, I think, was, "Yes, very single." So I was like, "Okay, I don't know if that's like, is that a good thing for me, or is that like,
is that a red flag?"
Yeah. But anyway, now one thing led to another, and in 2012, I married Lindsay. So we just celebrated the 7th of this month. We celebrated our 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Dude, it's funny because we were at your wedding. Amanda and I were dating, right?
Uh-huh.
And I think your mom had asked us how long we'd been married.
Probably. That sounds like my mom.
And I was just like, and Amanda was always very uncomfortable with stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, we're dating. And she's like panicking, right? Like, oh, we're not married.
Can't figure out how to back yourself out of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I thought you guys were married longer than that before us. Because we were at December.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's December.
In 12.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought you guys were a lot longer than us.
Yeah.
Maybe it just feels that way.
How long did you date?
Well, that depends on who you ask. You know that story, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because we were just in like a big friend group in that singles ward, right?
Yep.
And so like we would kind of pair off for like a couple weeks, and then we wouldn't, and then we'd pair back off for a couple weeks.
Yep.
And she never, like if you asked her, we were never dating. Like during any of that.
That's why we don't ask her though.
Yeah. So yeah, if you ask me, I'm like, oh, off and on for like a 6-8 months, and then we were like a year straight.
Okay. So I think probably the year straight that you guys were dating, like I think you guys might have even like started your relationship before Lindsay and I, or maybe
it was right there at the same
right
time.
At the same time.
Yeah, because she had just come back to so people that don't know, Amanda grew up in St. George, went to SUU in Cedar City where she met you.
Yep.
And then she came back to St. George, and that's when I met her.
Okay.
And so she was only here a week or two when I met her.
Okay.
So you had known her a little bit before, but you were dating Lindsay, I was dating Amanda.
It had to be like
pretty much same time.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was that same thing, dude. At Amanda's house, everyone would just somehow show up there.
Yep.
And then there'd be like 15 people there.
People like me were never invited, but I was
was
always
the same.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and like I kind of paired off with her a couple times just at church activities. And then the first time, like I asked her out on a date, and I pulled up at her house, and like we were talking about this before we got on the podcast, and I was like, in people that are familiar with St. George, you're like going out to Washington Fields, and then you turn into Indian Oaks, and I'm like, dude, she lives in Indian Oaks, you know, and like you would never guess, like her whole family is extremely humble, and I pull up to her house, and I'm like, good heavens, you know, and I'm like coming straight out of D-Town, so and then yeah, it was like I think that night we were with a bunch of people hanging out at in her pool. I think it was the first time I ever went over there.
Was I there? Like I've had that experience. Like
I think so.
Yeah.
Because there was first time I was over there was like 20 people at her house, and we were in the pool.
It's weird that we've like never talked about this and like looked back on that. Like, we've just been living life, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life is just happens.
Well, and because Lindsay and Amanda, we kind of got paired up, and then we realized how similar we are with our background in sports and different things, and so we kind of paired off too. But yeah, it's crazy to think that's, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when all that was going on.
That is crazy.
And now you're a doctor, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with life.
Oh man, people like me look up to people like you.
No,
Don't kid yourself. Don't sell yourself short.
So yeah, dude, I think the cool story we can pull out of this, and I hope you realize it. Like when I was kind of thinking about it today, I was like, I think you've just been head down grinding, for the past 8 years, really.
Yeah.
And when you're in that point, you don't even realize that that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But to look back and think like, okay, how did I get here? How did I move forward? How did I start, fighting the resistance and trying to progress and do all of that? I think we can kind of pull a cool theme and story out of that.
I think like I told you, I don't really like bring much to the table, but that's definitely, if I were gonna like sit and talk about myself about anything, it's kind of like, I don't know, you've heard people talk about like grit or just this like perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of like, that was really, if I was going to make my life happen the way that I wanted it to, I had to, I took the long road. I had to do a little bit different than other people. I had to kind of exhibit some of that grit and that perseverance.
So let's back up to kind of that point. Like I think Lindsay was going to school and working, you were working.
Yeah. So 2010, I started at Dixie, and then decided like, oh, you know what? Like I have different goals in life than college. I thought I was going to do summer sales and just make millions of dollars, right?
Sure.
Went and did that. So we spent some time in Oregon, Washington, and then Nebraska, like in the Midwest. And it was a great experience. But then I came home from that and I was like, man, I don't think that's what I want to make of my life. All along, I had thought I enjoy sciences. That's what I was going to study in college. And then really got to a point in my life where I was like, all right, I have to choose. Do I want to like pursue my childhood dreams of becoming a dentist, or do I want to figure something else out? Because at that point I was married, had these other responsibilities that I hadn't had before, and just had to like, I basically had to sit down and like make the decision within myself. Do I want to pursue the childhood dreams or figure something else out? And there's a piece of me that like, I remember having a conversation with my dad, and my dad was like, look, you've got a lot of different passions in life. You are great with people. You love sports. I talked about kind of my involvement with high school sports. And he said, well, like, have you ever considered teaching at the high school level? You can coach sports. You can like influence young lives and young people that way. Like, go for that. Do that. I thought, well, I don't know, maybe. I took like an education 10-10 class when I went after my sales experience, went back to school, took that 10-10 course. And I was like, yeah, I might have some interest in those areas, but this is not it. Like there's a piece of me that will forever wonder, like, what if I had given it my all to make my childhood
like, could you have done that and been a teacher? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, but there would always be something.
Like that's what my dad did, and I respect the heck out of him, you know? But then there would have been that piece of me for the rest of my life that I thought, man, what could I have ever gone into dental school? Like on the bad days as they come for everybody.
Yeah.
I would have been like, man, maybe I should have, would have, could have, right?
Well, dude, I think at the time, like for me observing kind of what you guys were going through, and I was for a lot of different relationships, not even just ours, like I was very abrasive with people. But I think for me and you, like I envied you because I was always like, dude, he knows he wants to go be a dentist. He knows he wants to, like, it's been the dream for him. And I've never had that. Like there's people that are like, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a policeman. Like when you're growing up, I never had any of that. And so for a few different people, I'm thinking in my head, but especially you, I was like, man, he's always had this dream of being a dentist. Yeah. And so like, I envied that like you knew what you wanted to do. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, well, what's he doing? Like, go be a dentist. Like if I knew something like that, I'd want to be going to do it. Yep. And so I think during that time, I was like, so what are you doing, man? Like, are you going to be a dentist or what?
Yeah, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I had to.
In due time, man.
Like I guess I had to make the mistakes or waste enough time for me to realize, like, I don't know. I guess I must be like world's best procrastinator or something, because I put off pursuing that for way longer than I should have. But I don't regret it because I'm in the position I am now, and we'll fill in all the holes.
Sure.
There. But it was just, I just had to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
And I remember being in that education 10-10 class, and I thought, this isn't it. Like I'm gonna buckle down. I'm gonna go take all those hard classes that I'm scared of. I'm gonna figure out how to be a good student, and I told you before, I said, okay, I'm gonna figure out if I need A, B, and C to match up with D, E, and F. Like I will figure out what I have to do to make those pieces come together.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of effort, took a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, but we got there eventually.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's cool, and something that people need to understand is you're 25 at this time. I mean, how old are you?
Yeah, I had to be like, by the time that I decided to go take all those hard college classes that are prerequisite courses for dental school,
Yeah.
I had to be 25, 26.
25, yeah, somewhere in there.
When everybody else in those classes is like 20, 21, maybe
Right.
22 on the later end, you know.
But I
So,
think
yeah.
that's kind of the point, is like, that's what I want to make out is, even at 25, when people are starting to do this at 20, well, like Amanda, I mean, she didn't even know she was going to be a nurse practitioner, but she just kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time she had her master's, she was extremely young, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so like there's that path, and that's great. But then there's people, like you were saying, maybe there's lessons you had to learn. There was experiences you had to go through. Being married might have been a part of it, like having more responsibilities.
Yep.
And then at 25, like I'd put it like the light switch went on, but you didn't. You were like, well, I just had, there was two paths
It was like, I don't know, for me, looking back, it was a culmination of like 7 or 8 different things that then I realized I was like, yes, okay, I can make this happen. One of them was like, I realized that financially my wife and I weren't in the spot that I had always envisioned myself being. So I said, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to provide some financial security. Like that was number one. She's my number one, right?
Yeah.
So figure that out. I met a couple of other people, Jordan Curtis and Mike Long. Mike Long went to Hurricane High. Anyway, met these 2 guys. They were great friends of mine, and they had like all the ambition and drive in the world. And they were right around my same age. And I was like, man, if these guys can figure it out, like maybe I can too. I'm not too dissimilar. So I met these guys who have this like awesome drive, super responsible, kind of hitched my wagon to their horse in a lot of ways. They kind of pulled me through some of those tough courses. So I met these guys. Caring for my wife, meeting these guys, and then ultimately just making that decision. Like I had to have those failed experiences like that class that I was like, all right, I will hate myself for forever unless I pursue it. And I will pursue it until there are no other options for me. And I remember having that kind of like, my dad and I talked about doing education and coaching. And then after that, I told my dad, I was like, I have to figure it out. I have to like pursue it until there's nothing left for me to pursue.
Well, and I think there's I'm writing stuff down because I'm like, dude, there's a lot of great points you're pulling out of that. Like you had some failure.
Yeah.
You had lessons.
And I had to take that chance, you know, like I had to give myself the opportunity to explore that. And I think that's like, it's one of the things I look back at. People might say you wasted your time. You spent the money on that class that you like, if it wasn't going to suit you, then why did you even, you know, but I'm the kind of person that I needed that failure to be able to like say, okay, that's not it. Then what's next?
See, but
right?
That's huge, man, is because
For
people
me,
let
yeah.
failure crumble them. And they let like, so it's like, my dad said I should go do this. And then I looked into it and it's not for me. And they let it beat them up.
Yeah.
And so being able to step past that and move on, like that's a mindset thing that you have that there's a lot of people that don't.
And honestly, if I had that experience at 20, 21 years old, I would have been beat up.
Exactly.
But because I'd had a little bit of other life experiences, I was 25 of that, 26 at that time, I was able to look at that and be like, okay, lesson learned. That's piece A matching up with D, whatever.
Yeah.
Let me figure out now piece B.
Well, and then I think the next step of that, and you were alluding to it, I just want to kind of extract it out of there, is the people that you surrounded yourself with.
Huge.
Yeah. And it is with anything.
And it was cool. It's kind of this, I don't know, it was like a natural progression in some ways, because I met Jordan and Mike, and they were like just dudes that I admire, and they're a lot like you. You know, like I could name on one hand these guys in my life who I'm like, they have been so influential for me. But I met them, and they kind of helped me through some of those tougher courses. But then when I got on those tougher courses, everybody taking those classes kind of has that drive and ambition. So then all of a sudden I'm surrounded like nonstop with these people who are like, I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to go to dental school. I'm going to be a PA. I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. And so it becomes contagious.
Yeah.
And for me it was.
Well, and I think it becomes possible.
Yeah.
Like I think it's this huge feat that you have to tackle, and then you start seeing people do it. Yeah. And you're like, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like
I've got another friend that I met in those classes, and I watched him go through the application process at dental school, and he kind of did it at the same time as me. He was successful in a year that I wasn't successful with applying, but I was like, man, his DAT score, like his admissions test score, is the same as mine. If he got in, I should be able to get in. I should be fine,
Yeah, I heard this quote. So I got, when I was doing holsters a lot at night, and I would just listen. And I was never a podcast guy. I was never a book guy. I was never any of that.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me into a lot of that. And so I got super, super exposed to, that's when I started listening to Joe Rogan. So I was listening to a lot of that. I've referenced Joe Rogan podcasts on here a number of times. Eric Thomas was a huge one for me. And so Eric Thomas has this thing he talks about. He's actually alluding to like muscle memory and practice and doing the thing over and over and over, and then your instincts take over. But he says something at the end that's always hit me. I've listened to this hundreds of times, this talk that he does. And the thing that sticks out to me is he's talking about Steph Curry hitting threes. And he's like, that dude hit 73 threes in practice straight, And then he says, crazy. And that dude is human just like me.
Yeah.
And like, that's always stuck with me, is I'm like, yeah, dude, like if he can do it, why can't I?
Yeah. I remember hearing when I was younger, one of my coaches said something similar, like along the same lines. They say he puts his pants on one leg at a time.
Exactly.
Just like you know what I mean? Like,
and so, but I think being surrounded with those people made it possible. So back to that, it's like being able to see that. And then where you were at in your life, you were taking on a lot of responsibility. And so that kind of pushes you.
Yep.
And you kind of have to get out of your comfort zone, right?
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing that you said that people don't do and why people stay mediocre is they don't take the chance. They're terrified to take the chance.
Right.
And I've been there.
And so I'll kind of continue this story of mine, because I think that's really like the strongest. If I'm going to be here, I might as well talk about this.
Sure.
But for me, I got through all those tough courses, and kind of there were some people that pulled me through, and it came time to submit an application to dental school, right? And I was applying at the same time as a couple of my other friends. Well, the first time that I applied to dental school, I didn't get in. I didn't have a single interview offer, which was like, again, for some people, they might look at that and be like, I tried.
Yeah.
Didn't get it.
Didn't work out for me.
But I looked at it and I was like, okay, my application was late. Like that could be part of it. And so I had like 2 more classes before I finished my degree, finished those classes. I'd worked at this time now, I'd worked for 2 years at a dental office. And I was like, okay, if I reapply next year, I'll have a whole nother year of dental experience. I'll have had at least another year of classes where I'm getting good grades now. So I said, I have to try again. I'll submit my application earlier, be a little bit more selective with the schools I'm applying to. I'll rewrite my personal statement and like polish that extensively. And as I was going through that process, so now I'm graduated, right? This is 2018, like right after I graduated from Dixie. No, 2017. Yeah. So 2017, I graduated.
18 was the year.
Applied that year, didn't get in. So then I had to wait till like March, April, May of 2018 to be able to resubmit an application. So through all those months, like I worked my tail off at a dental office, and that paid immense dividends. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but worked my tail off there and started putting together this application. I met with counselors at Dixie and said, hey, look, I'm trying to go to dental school. This is what I bring to the table. I remember them telling me, hey, are you like, with your GPA, with the experience, like, yeah, it's great, but I'm not sure that you're going to get in. Like, are you sure that this is what you want to do? So they literally told me, I don't think you're going to get in. And I was like,
dude, why is there so many stories like that, man?
I was like, this is stupid. I've heard this before. And I know, like, again, I had seen people the year before with my exact same numbers get in.
Right.
So I was like, I know I can. I might have to, like, it might not be at the University of Utah in my home state, right? But if I expand my horizons a little bit and take a chance, there's something out there for me.
Yeah.
So I put together what I considered a great application. I thought I really represented myself well. I'd had, now 3 years of good grades because I'd figured my life out and all that dental experience. submitted my application on time, was really diligent about contacting, all of the representatives from each of the schools. They tell you not to, but I was like,
Why not?
I'm going to. Like, if, it's either they hate me and they say, we don't want you, fine. Or they say, hey, this kid cares. Like, let's look into it a little bit more. And there's that. I started, anybody that I knew that's at dental schools, I was reaching out to them and really like tried my heart out because I wanted to make it happen, So 2018 comes around, submit my application on time, was really selective about the schools I was applying to. And like the first, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, I'd applied to 12 schools. And I think over half of them had offered me a chance to come to interview at the school, which is like half the battle. If you get an interview, it's like, okay, be pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
And long story short, I had 1 week where I was going to 2 different schools. When I was out on the interview at one of the schools, got an admission, like an acceptance from one other school. I was like, that was the best feeling in the world. Up until that point, I felt so helpless. I got that acceptance, and I was like, I'm going to dental school. Now, whatever happens, like, it's okay. It's just other opportunities now at this point, right?
Right.
I had that acceptance. So then I go to this school in Canada that I'd heard about. It's Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Had a buddy over there. One of the ones I was telling you about had been accepted the year before. Had a buddy there. I was like, hey, man, is it worth it? And he's like, yeah, it's like pretty good program. Small class size, lots of advantages. And I was like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But then when I really narrowed, like something felt good about it. But when I narrowed it down, like I was kind of impressed. Like the numbers made sense. Class size was enticing. It's a safe area, like somewhere cool to live. And I was like, if this works out, like this might be a financially wise decision. So I kind of waited. I talked about it a lot with Lindsay. Said, are we going to apply to this school? Do we want to do this? Ultimately, we decided, yeah, we're going to take that chance, right? Took an interview out there. Went out there. Things were awesome. And I had just been accepted, right? So, like, I'm cloud nine already at this point. But being out there, though, like, everything felt good. Loved the school. They had just built a brand new clinic. Again, I talked about it before. The class size was small. Like, there were so many good things about it. But then I was like, man, but this is literally all the way across the continent. Is that what I want to do? Anyway, again, to make a long story short, came home. Well, I had my interview there. Before I even left Canada, they had handed me like an admissions letter. So I'm coming home now on from this trip. I've been accepted to 2 different schools and like just stoked to tell Lindsay, hey, we're doing it. But yeah, we started putting the pieces together, and the tuition costs for one of those programs was a lot higher than the other one. The one in Canada was a lot more, it was a wiser financial investment, even though they were both big investments.
Yeah.
Going to Canada made way more sense. So that's kind of what we did. And it was, like you said, like we had to take that chance, but
Dude, that's a huge chance, man.
It's a little, in a lot of ways, it's a gamble, right?
It's
like,
a dice roll, dude.
Absolutely. But it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So, and there's not a piece of me, and she would probably say the same, there's not a piece of really either of us that looks back at that experience and thinks, oh man, maybe we should have done it different. Like, accepting we were there during COVID, so that sucks. But as far as the things that we can control, it was spectacular. It was like, couldn't even express in words like how great of an experience that was.
Yeah. Well, what I want listeners to kind of remember as we go through all this, now we're back to that circle. Like you reach out to your buddy that's out there. You kind of have some input yet. Yep. And so that network that you started building when you were going through those classes is, and like you said, we'll get to, like the network you were building when you were working and doing stuff too ends up paying off in the end. Yeah. And so surrounding yourself with the right people is a huge piece of anything in your life. You know, I mean, if you want to be in the NBA, you should probably go figure out how to be a ball boy or something. Like start surrounding yourself.
Start getting up shots with dudes that are shooters or whatever. If you want to play in the Major League Baseball, like if you want to play in the MLB, like go long toss with a buddy or go hang out with the kids at the high school baseball field. If you're a young kid, if you're in high school, go say,
get
hey,
involved
can I stand in the box when you're doing when you're throwing your bullpen session or whatever. Yeah. Like anything you can do to take that next step and put yourself around the people, like surround yourself with the people that you like, with the whatever the next step is that you want to take, go find those people.
Yeah. And it's cliche of the, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room type of thing, but I mean, it is true. Like
absolutely.
I've been in a few rooms and it got me to this podcast. I mean, being in the room that I didn't feel like I should be in. And that's what introduced me to a different person's podcast. Then I met Mallory, and then we started this, and I talk about it all the time where my network is 10x'd, 100x'd just from doing this. But yeah, I mean, that's what it kind of is I saw that person was doing a podcast, and I always kind of wanted to, but it terrified me. And so I went and I just said, hey, can I sit in on one of yours? Because I just wanted to see what it was about.
Yeah.
And so I went and sat in on one of his podcasts just in the corner. So like
Sweet.
No one could see me. And then I was like, all right, dude, if you ever need an emergency guy, I'm in St. George, hit me up. And then it was that next week they had me on that one. And so I kind of opened the door to all but that's the point, right? Like get in the right space of people like that.
Yeah.
And I've even told younger kids, high school kids, like, dude, if you're not sure, like you want to go be an accountant, but you're not really sure, go call some accountant, like get some contacts, but go tell them like, hey man, I'll run you coffee and get you donuts. Like, I just want to be around. I just want to be in the environment. Like, don't you even have to pay me. Like, just let me come sit in. Yeah. You want to be a lawyer, like just go see if you can sit in. Yep. Ride-alongs with police officers. There's lots of opportunities out there that. Yep. And going to lunch, dude, that's always been my thing. It's like, hey, let me take you to lunch. And it's like, now I got like a free hour of whatever occupation that person is, and you can just start digging with them. Yep. So yeah, get yourself in those circles. And it changed the projection of your life and the speed you were able to do it in.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So go through Canada, get done with school. Was there anything you want to hit in?
Well, so let me just, like, my school is fantastic, Dalhousie University, again, on the east coast of Canada. Props to them. I had a great experience, right? But, man, COVID was, like, that was rough. That was rough. Because here we are across the border, and then they start saying, hey, you can't travel. Yeah. Like, you can't go home.
Yeah, ruined my bear hunt for 2 years.
I'm sorry, dude. It's the worst. I was trapped across the border.
Okay, you're a little worse than me.
Yeah. Anyway, they handle things really well, and what I'm grateful for though is that their response and kind of the way that they have to manage their healthcare system, they kind of have to overreact to a lot of different things. Sure. Right. So in that situation, their government officials say we're closing restaurants, shopping, and we're doing it for 2 months until we can get everything under control, until we have a better idea, whatever. So my school, in my second year, so in 2020, closed down, and then, because we managed things really well and we managed all the cases and things like that in Halifax and in Nova Scotia, I didn't miss out on any clinical experiences, which was huge. I know I had friends in Salt Lake and other places that were like, oh yeah, we're doing one treatment a week, and I'm full bore, right? Yeah. So that was really nice.
So that really benefited you from being there through that.
In a lot of ways. Yeah, absolutely. And the other nice thing is too, I had 5 kids from Utah in my class. 6 in the class in front of me, 6 in the class behind me. It's like we had a good support group there. And like, for anybody considering dental school, look into Dalhousie University. Well worth it. Yeah.
Reach out to Parker. He can give you some tips.
Hit me up, please. Yes, absolutely. But anyway, it was a great experience, accepting 1 or 2 things here and there with like COVID and not being able to travel and that kind of stuff. But I think for everybody that was rough. We had a rough go there for a minute.
Everyone has their story about why COVID screwed them. Yeah. Well, if it not even screwed them. I mean, for you, and dude, I'll say the same thing. I've had this conversation with people with 2020 when it kind of kicked off, right? Yeah. Dude, that was the best year I've ever had. Like financially, relationship. We had our son. We built a brand new house. I started the retail business that we're in now. Like, so I tell people, I'm like, dude, it's all what you make it though.
You did a lot.
You it's all a mindset. It's all how you're going to react to things. Yeah. And people are shutting their businesses down, and I'm like, we were growing faster than I could get product, and then supply lines kind of messed that up too. But I don't know. So yeah. So it's kind of funny. That's the first story I've really heard where someone's like, yeah, dude, I was kind of, not that it benefited you, but it didn't affect you in a way.
Wasn't disadvantaged
exactly
by like the response to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people talk about 2020 and I'm like, man, it was great for me.
I kind of like it was being a dental student. Like I always thought, man, my time is going to be 100% tied up. I will have like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. days. And then we kind of like, we transitioned this online learning, shut down the school. I was home all day.
Yeah.
Courses were online. I was like, hey, I'm hanging out with my wife. I'm like playing video games as a dental student, which I
Right.
never expected. So yeah,
And Lindsay's like, I thought you weren't going to be around a lot.
I'm trying to read books and I'm like, they're bothering her all day.
Yeah, grabbing her book.
Yep.
Cool. So I was going to go after that. Is there anything in Canada? And I was going to say, is there anything that,
Yeah, so let's talk about, we've hinted at it a couple of times, right? So my third year, I'm at the point in my education now where I'm trying to figure out what's next, right? I had some awesome mentors that I'd worked for, and they always said, hey, look, if you want to be the best dentist, you've got to pursue a general practice residency. Well, I'll call it a GPR from this point forward, but it's a general practice residency. Basically, it's another year where you see some difficult cases that, like, as a dental student, your faculty probably wouldn't let you treat, but then you do a GPR and like more surgeries, implants, like you learn some advanced techniques, right?
okay.
So they always said, you've got to do that. You've got to do that. So that was on my radar. I was kind of putting together an application for general practice residencies, some other specialties that I was interested in. And this office that I'd worked for 3 years before dental school, they call me and they say, hey, what are your plans? And I'm like, well, I'm like we talked about, like you guys had always told me, I'm putting together an application for GPRs. Why do you ask? You know, and they said, well, we're growing and we're at a point right now where we need another dentist. And I was like, well, I've got another year after my, I have to do my GPR before I can join you guys. So I'm like, I'm probably not your guy. You're trying to like
Hit me up in a year.
Yeah, you hit me up to put you in touch with somebody else. Like, what's up? Anyway, long story short, they say, we will treat the first year you come work with us like a GPR. We'll help you learn those advanced techniques. We'll kind of walk you through some of those more difficult cases. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, come on.
Yeah, this can't be
it's too
true.
good to be true. Like, there's no way this is working out for me. You know, I've had to, like, I took the slow road. Like, there's no way that this just falls into my lap.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It didn't though, but yeah, I know
It didn't. I worked my guts off for 3 years
Yeah.
to try to impress them, and ultimately they felt like I was going to be a good fit. I'd shown them enough in the 3 years that I spent there. I worked hard as a dental student.
Exactly.
Like, I became to be a great dental student and was ready to take that next step.
After all that, it feels like it fell in your lap.
I feel bad because I always used to tell myself, I remember being in seminars as a college student. And I remember people coming in and being like, oh, this is my life. I did undergrad and then I did my dental schooling and then now I've practiced for X amount of years. And they like sum up all of these years in one sentence. And I told myself, I was like, I will never do that. And now here I am in this position. I feel like I'm kind of
Fell
doing
in my
it.
lap.
No, like that time that from 25 to 29 years old, like I worked hard.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of long days. I remember being up until 4 a.m. one day doing a calculus assignment. Calculus was one of the classes required. I had to do well in that class if I wanted to make my dreams come true. Like, so I'm up until 4 a.m. doing this assignment, go to class at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever it was, Like, I had some tough times. Dental school is the same. Like, it was not a walk in the park. It wasn't all video games and homeschool,
Yeah.
right? Like, it was a grind. And I really had to, like, persevere, and I had to stretch myself and challenge myself. But because it was well worth it, because I knew at the tail end of that, I was going to create an opportunity for myself, whether I was going to get into a prestigious GPR or I was going to go into practice and be a fantastic dentist. Like,
Yeah.
I knew if I did my part, I would be in that position.
And I know you meant this too, but you put yourself and Lindsay in a position
Absolutely.
I mean, like, and I love that you refer to it as making your dreams come true, because that's exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be able to put both of you guys in that position, and I guess that was kind of the point I was trying to allude to, is like, it didn't fall in your lap. You worked your trash off.
Yeah.
But to have anything that's worth anything, I mean, there's going to be resistance and things you have to go through. I
Yeah.
mean, people that are, quote unquote successful, if you want to say that word, like yours is I was up till 4 a.m. doing calculus.
Yeah.
I mean, Amanda has stories like that as well. I mean, any successful business person would have, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so there's
Yeah.
always resistance that you have to get through. And I hate it when people let that crumble them.
Yeah.
And so again, like that's what I just thought. I knew that we could kind of pull this theme out of this.
We could talk, like I had so many experiences. We could probably do a whole other podcast on all the mistakes that I made, right? And all of the brick walls that I ran into full force, right? But like I got through those brick walls.
But that's all
like,
part of it.
And for me, I had to have those experiences in order to learn and figure out what I needed to do to make all of that happen.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say, and I like it a lot. He used to say, look, in life, you can pay the price now in sacrifice, or you can pay the price later in suffering. And not to say that like making money is like everybody's end goal and dream, right? But whatever your dreams and ambitions are, like they don't just happen for people. You have to go make those happen. You have to pay that price. If you don't, you're going to beat yourself up wondering, should I have pursued it? Should I have seen it to the end? Right. And that's the kind of suffering that I think my dad was worried about seeing his kids go through. Mm-hmm. He didn't ever want us to feel like we had sold ourselves short. So he used to tell us that you can pay the price now in sacrifice, or you can pay the price later in suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Your delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I paid the price, not necessarily like I paid the price a little bit later than the now, but like I paid the price up front to put myself in this position.
Yeah. And not to say that you're not at the finish line by any means.
No.
and that's what I love about it is
now I'm paying a different price than
exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I went through dental school. Yeah. And we will continue the story, but it's like, dude, you're still working. You're still moving forward. You're still making things happen.
Yep. Anyway, so back to what I was talking about with the experience that I had. I worked for 3 years at this office. They reach out. They say, hey, we need a new guy. We'll treat your first year like a GPR. We'll help you through all those cases. I thought, man, there's no way. Anyway, I flew out, met with them, the guys that I'd worked for, and I couldn't say no. Ultimately, we like wanted to end up back in St. George long term, but I'm thrilled to be where I'm at. I've got some awesome mentors. I've been doing it now for 3 or 4 weeks, and they've had to bail me out a few times. But if I had to do that all on my own without their help, that would be so much harder.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to be in the spot I'm in now. And I think it's important for me to mention too, like Lindsay she was a very, very important, she has been patient through the whole process. We met an elderly gentleman one time out like on our porch, and he was asking her, she always tells me, she's like, I hate when people ask like, what do you do? Where are you at in life? Cause she felt like she never had anything to bring to the table. She does. She's talented in so many different ways.
For sure.
But he was like, what do you do in life? And she's like, oh, well, I'm just working right now. He's like, just working? What do you mean? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm just working to try to like make it so he can do what he wants to do. And he's like, okay, so you're earning a PhD. And she's like, what? PhD? So I've earned a DDS, or, like a doctorate degree is a PhD.
Right.
He's talking about this PhD. And she's like, I have no idea what that is. What is he talking about? And it's put hubby through. 100%. I would not be in the position I am without her hard work and sacrifice.
Yeah.
So she paid just like I did. I had to put in the work. She had to do her part as well. So
yeah, I'm sure it was no walk in the park.
Kudos to her, because I'm a pain to live with. I came home, I brought stress home through all of that process we were just talking about, and she managed to figure out how to help me through it all. So I remember, she'll appreciate me talking about this, but during finals exams, like it is just brutal. There were times that when we were doing our finals at home, they have like cameras they put on you. You have to like show your workstation. So, and then you grind for 2 hours. Like you take exams, right? And then I remember finishing one exam. It was just brutal. Like it was so tough. I stood up and I walked over and was standing at our window there in Halifax, and I was just standing like looking out the window. And she's like, babe, you good? You all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And so she like has a picture of that, and it's like, I think she captioned it something about like, pondering life or something like that. And looking back, like even just her being there and recognizing I had been through kind of hell at that time, right? It was like those types of things carried me through.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dude, she's a soldier, dude. I like Lindsay a lot, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I married up. One of the guys that I work with, when I met him, I introduced Lindsay, and years have gone by, and he kind of has come to know me a little bit better. I was chatting with him the other day, and he's like, here's the real question I have. I've wondered this for a long time. And he says, why did she settle for someone like you? Because you definitely married up. Can't deny it. Like, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering like how I lucked out.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, I tell people I didn't.
Both of us, actually.
I
don't know how
100%, dude. I tell people I got Amanda LASIK after we were married.
yeah. I probably told her a lie from the start, and she bought it. And like that's what's gotten me through.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So wrapping up Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this. I hope I haven't tried to push you to this story because I love this story that you guys told us the other night.
I think this is kind of a good transition.
Yeah, because we kind of brought up Lindsay.
The way we are. Yeah.
So after you guys kind of took this, you traveled, right? So you drove home. Is that where?
Yeah, so we drove out to Canada, figured out, hey, we're going back to St. George. We have this awesome opportunity. Now we got to move from Canada back to St. George.
Yeah.
Well, we're driving, like we drove there, so we're driving home. So we kind of made a road trip out of it.
Yeah.
We stopped and saw some baseball games, like spent some time in Boston, New York, Washington, D.C. Like if you have to travel across the country, might as well make the most of it.
For sure.
So we did. And one of our stops happened to be, so we stopped in St. Louis, Missouri, and then Kansas City and saw a baseball game in Kansas City. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So anyway, we make the stop in Kansas City and see a baseball game. All day that we were driving, Lindsay's looking at the weather app, and she's like, oh, it's going to be rainy. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be rainy. We like get into Kansas City, and weather's kind of beautiful. So I'm like, sweet. Like it just lucked, like we lucked out. Perfect weather. Like it was great baseball weather. Enjoyed the game. Not a cloud in the sky. We go to the Airbnb that night, and we hunker down. We're like settled down. 3 a.m. We're dead asleep. My phone starts going off, just bzz, 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 bzz. And she's like, Parker, you gotta like, what is your family like? Is somebody in trouble? Why is your phone going crazy?
Yeah.
So I look at my phone. It says severe thunderstorm warning. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's the weather. No big deal. Put my phone back on the nightstand. I go to sleep. 5-10 minutes later, phone goes off again. Bzz, 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 bzz. And she's like, Parker, like, what is going on? Turn your phone off.
Phone.
Yeah. So I look at my phone. And it's like tornado warning. I'm like, what? Well, as I'm looking at this, trying to figure out life in my sleepy, hazy state, she's also getting that same notification. Seeing, as soon as she sees the tornado warning, she is like up. She is just stressed out to the max. She's like putting clothes on. She's got a blanket. She's got a pillow. She's an avid reader. Grabs a book and she's like, "What do we do? What do we do?" She's like trying to get me to figure it out, and I'm like,
"You're asleep."
I'm sleeping. Yeah. I'm like, what are we gonna do? I'm not gonna change the weather. Like, the tornado's gonna hit us. I'm gonna sleep through it.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing that she says, you were like, she tells a story and she says, you were completely resolute to just mattress surf the tornado. I would have just snoozed through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is why she's like my great compliment, right? She's stressed out. She's like, we have get up. There's a tornado warning for this area. We need to figure out what we need to do.
Right.
So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, it's an Airbnb. I don't know where to go.
Right. And we don't there's not tornadoes where we live.
No,
so.
I've never been in that situation before. So she's like buzzing around. She's like, call the Airbnb people. They'll know what to do. And I'm like, it's 3 a.m. I'm not going to do that. So I start Googling what to do in a tornado. She's doing the same thing. She's like, we got to get in the bath, away from all the exterior walls, get away from the windows. We're not idiots. We kind of we're aware of that,
Sure.
But we're like, okay, do we go into the bathroom on the upper level, or do we go downstairs and try to hunker down in the hallway in the lower level? I don't really know. Did it really make a difference? Anyway, so we're sitting there and looking at local weather stations on our phones, trying to see are there confirmed tornadoes, or just tornado warning, what's going on. Anyways, I see on my phone there's a confirmed tornado touchdown. So I'm like, oh, freak. she cannot know this. She will lose her mind if she figures this out. And then at the same time as I'm like looking at where it's touched down, she's like loses her mind, starts crying. She's like, "Oh my gosh, there's a tornado. It's like it's not far from us." And I'm like, "Oh freak, how did she figure this out?"
Yo, put your phone away.
Yeah. So then I'm like, "Hey, read your book."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking at local weather stations, seeing where it touched down, which direction it's tracking, trying to keep a cool head. She's like, "Call your family if something goes wrong. Somebody needs to know." So I call my mom, and my mom, sweetest lady, she answers her phone and like, had to be 1 a.m., 12 at midnight, 1 a.m., something like that. She's like, "Hi, is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to let you know there's a tornado going on." Lindsay's in the background just sobbing, can't catch her breath. I'm like, "Am I going to have to manage like a panic attack on top of trying to survive a tornado here?" Just a wild experience. Anyway, so I'm looking at where this tornado's like, which direction it's tracking, where it's touched down. It's like 10 to 12 miles away from where we are. It's touched down, tracking our direction.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot because I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, I will tell this story for the rest of forever. So I have a screenshot of like where it goes. 10, 15 minutes go by. It's tracking towards us. And then the local news stations that we're watching on our phones finally come around and they're like, okay, the tornado has picked up. It picked up across this, like right before reaching this highway. So it picked up. If I could visualize this for listeners, it'd be awesome. But anyway, picked up right before crossing a highway, and just like a mile across the highway is where we were staying.
Yeah.
So it really, like, it was pretty close, you know. And
does it just seem like a thunderstorm this whole time? Like,
well, yeah. So like in our bedroom, constant thunder, flashes of light every 5-10 seconds. You can hear the rain pounding hard. We get the tornado warning. We go into the bathroom. We just hear it like thunder's crashing every 30 seconds.
Like crazy wind.
A little bit windy. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'd kind of like slept through it, so it like didn't.
Where's Lindsay?
Yeah.
I need her version.
No, seriously, it was windy, and there was like constant flashes of light. It was like a thunderstorm as bad as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So like it was severe weather, like merited the warnings that went out. But the other thing I didn't mention, we're in the bathroom, right, and we're looking at these confirmed tornadoes touching down. And you can hear the tornado sirens going off.
Oh, dude.
She was just losing her mind. Yeah, she was losing her mind. But
and my favorite part, dude, is she's fully dressed.
Yeah.
You're in a bathtub.
Like, so, yeah, she's like in the bathtub with her pillow and her blanket.
And her book.
Fully dressed. And I'm there in my underwear.
Half asleep.
With a half-charged phone, half asleep, thinking, how am I going to, like, what do I do?
If that's not your guys' personality. And not to say that
is.
she's like some stress case, because she's not.
No. But she definitely, when I am, like, checked out, she's on her game.
Yeah.
And when she wants to check out, like, I tend to be on my game.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's like, we've had some interesting experiences. That's one of my favorites, for sure.
Tornado picks up, you guys are fine.
Picks up.
It's a couple miles away.
Yep. News stations say, hey, you know, like, it picked up. Everything's good.
Go back to bed.
Yep, not going to touch down again. Storm's dissipated. And we're just like, that happened.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was crazy.
That's
wild.
It was crazy. So you guys do this little trip, drive all the way back home. Then you get home. And so how, from when you got home to when you started at the dentist office?
Like I got home, I think it was on a Wednesday. That Thursday, I went into the dental office.
So no break. I mean, well, I guess your break driving home.
We had the whole break, and we had some time off from graduation to when we actually made the trip home. But I didn't start doing dentistry right off the bat. I had to wait for the licensing and all that kind of stuff. But put myself right in it, just fully immersed, watch the guys that I was working with do their thing, kind of learn the flow of the office and all that kind of stuff. So it was.
And that's
right
Riverside
Dental Care. Yep.
And then there's
the two offices, one on Riverside Drive. And then one in Washington Fields by the Lynn's that's over there.
Yeah, the new one over there.
Yep.
Yeah. You kind of go back and forth, right?
I spend Mondays at Riverside, and then the other day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm at the one in Washington.
Okay.
So I think it's important to mention because we've talked about it a little bit. Anybody interested in dentistry, like reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have you come kind of spend a little bit of time in the office, pick my brain about my experiences. I'm fresh out of it. So like, I feel like it's pretty relevant for anybody considering it, whether you're 10 years old, 20 years old and in college, like
I'm 25, wondering
25 thinking, man, I should pursue that childhood dream.
Yeah.
Come chat with me. I'm more than happy to share my perspective.
Yeah. Cause we'll tag you in everything.
Perfect.
And so anytime we're talking about it, We'll have like your little link right there where they
Sweet.
can click onto you.
Perfect.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, we kind of hit everything I wrote down. But so what now? So I'm thinking like dentistry now. Do you feel like so I've kind of been battling with this last couple of years. Like I almost feel like I've peaked, and I feel like I've done everything I've wanted to do, and I'm fighting with myself of like, okay, what's next? Like what's next? And so having this childhood dream of being a dentist, well, you're there.
Yeah.
So what now? So what's on the ballot
So
now?
now, like I look at, I have these experiences, and I still have a lot to learn about dentistry. Don't get me like
Sure.
I'm not gonna toot my horn in that way. Like I've got a lot to learn, but I'm the type of person that even when I have something go extremely well, like as far as a case, right, I'll look at that, and there's always something I can be a little bit more critical of. I'll look at it and be like, gosh, I wish I would have done this different. I wish I would have changed the contour of this a little bit or whatever. So for me, it'll be a lifelong process of practicing dentistry and really like trying to refine my skills and like the outcomes in every one of those situations. But more than that, like I want to grow the practice. Like I want to be the piece that spurs growth to the point that we have to bring another new dentist in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I've got these goals and they break down daily, weekly, monthly. Like 3 years from now, you know, I want to be part of building a new office and expanding our practice a little bit more. So,
See, I'm awful at that. I'm not a goals guy, and I hate to admit it because it's like such a,
well,
like anyone in my shoes is like, oh, I've got all these things written down and I look at them every day, and I'm not that guy.
I'm not like write it on the mirror and daily affirmations type, but I definitely like I have to have an understanding of where I'm going, so that I know my efforts day in and day out aren't just like getting through the day.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of similar. Like I used to work out, and the worst thing that I would do with a workout is start it not knowing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because if I was going, like we used to have these workouts for football where we'd show up and we would just go exercise after exercise after exercise. But I dogged it through every one of those because I was like, I don't know how much I have to keep in the tank. Right. So I dogged it and dogged it and dogged it and dogged it and dogged it. And then all of a sudden we're done. And I'm like,
You're like, I kind of had more to give.
that wasn't a good workout for me because I dogged it the whole time.
That's a good point.
Anyway, so I have to have the perspective of this is where I'm like, this is the end goal, so that then I can make everything in between like the maximum effort.
Yeah.
Right. So taking the workout analogy and applying it to like my day to day, like I have to put the most in day to day so that I know, okay, I have to have great patient interactions. I have to have like every injection that I give has to be good because I want this patient to come back. They're a vital piece for me growing my practice. So like everything is intentional. Everything is like kind of, I have to like maximize each experience in my day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of why I feel like I've just floated opportunity to opportunity because I've never had, and it's a self-inflicted thing to a point. Like I've just never put anything out there of like, this is where I want to get to. Like I wanted to have successful businesses. I've wanted to work for myself. Like I'm not saying that, like I've known that. But like, I think financially, I just didn't dream big enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so like Amanda and I both like, and obviously she plays a huge role in us financially, but like once we kind of hit a point, like we built our dream house, we had a kid, and I was like, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do that. But then when we had our kid, it's like, okay, I kind of checked that box.
Yeah.
And then, having the retail store, and I've always been in retail, and I've managed, I've owned. I mean, I've done every step of it, and now I own one. So I'm kind of, that's where I was kind of going back to is like, so what's next? Like, not that I think I've made it, and that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at, I should have dreamt bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and I should have, and so that would be a thing that I would tell people. And I don't know about you, dude. For me, it was, man, dude, if I can just do six figures, if I can six figures, and I think that's a lot of people in our generation. It's like, if I can just do six figures, I'm set.
Oh yeah. I always told myself, man, I think I could be comfortable living on 60,000, like 60,000. I should have dreamt bigger.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm just grateful that I had that childhood dream to kind of
Yeah.
spur me along.
Exactly.
Because that was the constant flame. It was this like thought in the back of my mind that was a little bit of a driving force.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
if you asked like 16-year-old me what I wanted to be when I grew up, like I wanted to do something with cars and I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah.
But what that was, I have no idea, and I don't work anything with cars. So that's kind of back.
You're so hard on yourself, though. Like, from my perspective, I've watched you go through all these endeavors, and I'm like, man, Derick's got it figured out. Like, he's been successful in this,
Just
and
blind.
this, and this, and this. No. I'm like, he's got it all figured out.
But I think that's part of it too. Is like and this is a big part, dude, that I want to say, and I want to say it for you too, and your siblings. But like, I haven't realized that there are a lot of people that watch me. Just kids I grew up with, younger kids, people in my neighborhood, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And there's people that see what you're doing and you don't realize it, that you're projecting all of that out there for people to view. Yeah. And you have very successful siblings that are, well, you can tell if there's a lawyer or going to law school.
I've got a sister that runs a medical practice, sister that owns her business. I've got a brother that's an anesthesiology resident in California, another brother that's in a law program, another brother he's kind of building his own business right now. So
so people look at that though. I mean, that's like an optic and like you're saying about me, like, oh, he's got it figured out. And I'm like, dude, I'm just like tumbling from one thing to the next. But my point is like, there's people out there watching you and the effect that you can have on people. So like all those people you grew up with, kids you played football with, kids you played baseball with, high school, like, dude, you're Dr. Parker Tripp now, like you're a dentist, right? And so people can see that and then back to the whole, like, well, dude, if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And then kids that were younger than you that you've had influences on, if he can do it, I can do it. And you had someone influence you to be a dentist, maybe. Am I messing that up? Or did you have someone that was a dentist?
Yeah, there's like, other than like my close friends, I have an uncle that's a dentist. Yeah. And he was pretty, more than anything I saw that it could be a comfortable lifestyle. So I loved working with my hands, loved the sciences. So I thought, hey, you know what, maybe dentistry is something that I'll that I'll pursue in the future. That was like as a kid.
Yeah.
And then as I got into my teenage years and watched my uncle go through like dentistry and live like that lifestyle that dentistry can afford some people if you do it right, I thought,
kind of the same thing that I'm kind of saying is like you have that view of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so how many people out there are viewing you or viewing your siblings, and it can change the course for them.
Yeah. It feels like nobody.
Right. See, I don't think anyone sees me that way.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I mean, maybe we just don't talk to those people that we're viewing like in that lens, but if somebody is, I hope that I've been a positive influence and not some other derogatory influence. But
I listened to a talk and it kind of brought that up, and it was like you have no idea the optic you're putting out there and the influence that you can have. And I have two friends' dads growing up that were very influential for me being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that they would even view it that way, and I haven't, one of them's passed away. The other one, I've never said it to his face really. So I don't know if he's even really put the dots together. Yeah. But yeah, so I've tried to be more like, hey, if this is something you want to do, come talk to me, come over to the store. Let's hang out. I mean, there's people I've just offered jobs when they've been like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. And I'm like, dude, come work for me. Yeah. Or, hey, like I've got some holsters that need to get done. Like, do you want to come help me do that? So I've tried to be a lot more aware of that. Yeah. And I think you are too, like not knowing you're being aware, because you already said it, like, hey, if this is something you're interested in, come pick my brain, come talk to me about it. But I think that's a huge thing. And people would view you, I mean, you're successful. Like you've become that dentist, right? And like you said, you still have room to grow, obviously, but people are going to see that and see that it's possible. You're extremely down to earth. You're a great people person. And so they can see all of that and know that they can achieve that, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's worth mentioning. I used to think anybody going to, and maybe I've hopefully I haven't misrepresented myself. I'm probably the least intelligent of all my siblings. My siblings are bright people. They're very gifted, I'm kind of not, honestly. So like what you're saying, like if I can do it, like there's a lot of people that are very capable of doing what I have done, right? I had to work a little bit harder than some of my peers because they're just naturally gifted. I really wasn't like just naturally intelligent, couldn't figure things out the way that they would. So I had to work a little bit harder, but I was always willing to, and I always knew that was going to be part of it for me. And if I can do it, like there's so many other people that are much more qualified than I am, and can put themselves in a similar position to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's tracks of what I've had to do, and a lot of it's risk. And like we kind of touched on, taking the risk, taking the jump, taking the chance.
Take a chance on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like being an entrepreneur, I mean, that's just part of it. You have to, like, you're taking a chance that you can figure it out. Right.
Yep.
And going through school, being I mean, that kind of plays the role on anyone that's had to do anything significant.
Yeah.
But no, man, I lost my train of thought right there.
Well, it's just like, I mean, you have to believe in yourself if you're going to do it. Right. But if there's someone out there that can look at me, like they have to understand I'm not, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not very naturally gifted as far as academics or anything like that. But if I can do it, if someone's willing to take a chance on themselves, be it business, dentistry, medicine, whatever it
fill in
is,
the blank.
if I can figure it out, man, just take a chance.
Right.
And it doesn't have to, like, sometimes I hear podcasts and I hear people say like, oh, you gotta like get the money together and make this risky financially. It doesn't have to be like that. Like, take a chance and reach out to somebody and say, hey, Derick, I've been interested to like start a podcast. Can I come sit in on one?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Dr. Tripp, I actually have thought dentistry might be interesting. Can I come see what a dental office, like, what's it like behind the scenes?
How's it function?
Take that chance. Like, that's not a hard chance to take, and that in a lot of situations can be a foot in the door. So
yeah,
you just have to, like, you have to take the chance. If I never did, I would have beat myself up for the rest of forever. I had to take the chance, and I had to take the chance on myself.
Yeah. See, and I think what kind of got me into entrepreneurship is I didn't think I was a good employee. I challenged everybody all the time, and people tend to not like that when you're the boss. But for me, it was almost, I wasn't like doing it to be a dick. I was like, I'm just trying to understand. Like, I think you're wrong, and I'm trying to understand where you're coming from so I can be on the same page as you. Yeah. Like, and it wasn't like I want to be confrontational, right? And so what I was actually getting at, that same thing that you ended up finishing the thought was, dude, I'm nothing special. Like and to be honest, like, I had mentors for a couple of years. Yep. My brother Adam's been the biggest help in business out of everyone. And to be honest, in the last, 5 years, he is growing his business 100 times so substantially that I feel guilty even calling him for a stupid question, And so I kind of have had to figure out more recently than ever. And so my point is like, you have to bet on yourself at some point. And so you kind of finished that thought, so I don't need to repeat what you were saying, but yeah, dude, I think that's pretty much it. We just ticked an hour.
Dude, this is a dream for me. I have to say, like, I've listened to the podcast. I thought, man, that'd be kind of cool, but I've got a lot of work to, like, I'm not cool enough to end up on the Derick Lake podcast.
No, dude, when I knew you were back,
this is a dream. It's surreal for me actually to have this opportunity.
Yeah,
so thank you.
It's fun, dude. It really is fun to get on here, and it's cool for me too when I bring my buddies on, and it's like we can just have like an uninterrupted, just casual
chat.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's brought in so many different personalities and people that I've met. It's been awesome. Yeah. But when I knew you were moving back to St. George, I didn't even know that you were even watching any of it. Yeah. But I was like, oh, he'd be a cool one to bring on. And then we had someone last week. Let me try to remember. So we had someone last week, and I had to push him. And then, I kind of talked about it a week or two ago, but Mallory, wasn't that when there was COVID at Will's daycare when we pushed Brandon?
Yeah, and we had Blake on as kind of an emergency guest.
So Blake filled in because I had to push the guest.
And then we had to get one in for that week. And so I think we just did it like Friday night, so she could edit it all and post it Saturday.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to come in and rant. And then Blake's like, dude, I'm here. I'm available. I'll jump in and here with me. Let's go. And so we kind of pushed Brandon, and then we were like, oh, we'll just get him this week. And then he's been out of town. And so Mallory's like, what are we going to do? Yeah. And the cool thing that Mallory is kind of navigating right here. Well, I don't know if it's cool for her, but for me, it's cool to watch her growth and everything that Blue Form's going through. So they've basically had the Derick Lake podcast for a year now, and I've been their only client. And so we've been extremely flexible through everything. Yeah. Well, now they've picked up 3 more podcasts. Mal?
Yeah, we're at a total of 4. So yeah, we've picked up 3.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they've picked up 3 in like a very, very short amount of time. Like I'm talking like the last 2 months.
That's awesome.
And so it's kind of, so now we have to be a little more structured instead of like, hey, what's going on Wednesday? I don't know. Maybe we'll try Thursday. And so we've kind of had to narrow it down a lot more.
So that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so it's cool for me because I've kind of been through some of those steps with other businesses. So when she's going through those, like I can recognize them. And we kind of had a little chat a week or 2 ago after the podcast was done, and she was telling me some things, and I'm just sitting there nodding my head like, dude, I've been there. Like I totally get it. Yeah. And so anyway, so she was like, hey, we need to find someone, and it has to be Tuesday or Thursday. Or what's today, Wednesday?
Wednesday
it has to be Monday or Wednesday.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, we'll see where Brandon's at. Brandon's out of town. So we're having Brandon on, I think next week or the week after. And so then in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm sure Parker would come do it. And so I was like, and so I'd been meaning to text you for since Monday.
Yeah.
And then Mallory last night was like, so do you have anyone? And I was like, I just need to send a text out to Parker because I'm sure we can get him on.
Dude, I'm thrilled. It's such a cool opportunity.
Yeah. So like I was telling you before we got on and started it, I've just had some times, and it's not due to the guest or not due to anything more than just myself and kind of being less disciplined mentally for myself. But there's times where I'm just like, oh, dude, like I'm so tired, or Will's got something or Amanda's got something. Like it'd be so much easier to not do the podcast tonight. And then after I talked to you and you're like, dude, it'd be an honor. It'd be so cool to get on there. Yeah. And I'm like, I was excited all day thinking like, oh, I'm going to bring up this and I'm going to bring up this and I'm going to bring up this. Yeah. And so that's something that's been cool with friends that I know, right? Is I can kind of game plan it throughout the day. And I don't know what it's like on your side. You're probably like, the hell's he going to ask me?
A little bit of that, but also who doesn't love a chance to talk about themselves, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot to talk about, but if there's one person that finds one thing that I said somewhat inspirational, I feel like it's time well spent.
Well, that's this whole thing, dude. Yeah. I mean, that's why we started the whole thing in the beginning, is like we had talked about before we started. I don't have that many things to say. And so I'm going to start repeating myself after episode 10, right? Yeah. But bringing different people on, different walks of life, different backgrounds, different occupations, we've been able to just kind of put the spotlight on people and give them a platform to come on and talk about it. Yeah. And then really my role from the first few podcasts, I thought I had to have all these profound things to say, right? It kind of just switched to, I'm just kind of the guide. Yeah. Let's just kind of, you said that. Oh, I write this down. I want to bring this up. Oh, dude, that happened and I knew that. So let's expound on this. Yeah. And so sometimes it's hard because I feel like I'm just cutting people off through the story. But I'm like, dude, we really need to talk about this because people don't see this. They don't grasp this. Yeah. And so I thought it went great, dude. I thought we walked through a lot of things. We checked everything that I wrote down. So
no, it's perfect.
Okay, dude.
And honestly, if nothing else but a chance to put out there in the media world, I'm grateful to the people that have helped get me to this point. I'm thankful for the opportunity I have. I'm extremely thankful for my wife and her support. If thanks is the only thing I get out there to those people that have supported me, I'm it's just the best.
Well, dude,
I don't get this opportunity otherwise. So big thanks to you. I really appreciate it.
I will say this, dude. Because in those first few years that we were kind of hanging out, going from then to now, I don't know what it means, if it means anything, dude, but I've been so proud to watch you go through those steps.
Thanks, man.
And the things, because I didn't know what you were going through, but I knew it was hard. And I knew you were, like I like to say, pushing against the brick wall and pushing yourself forward and progressing. And I remember when Amanda told me you guys were going to Canada, and I was like, dude, that's like, I'm not that guy. And so I was like, dude, that's an awesome risk that you guys are willing to take. And so we haven't been talking back and forth a lot, but I've followed a lot of Lindsay's posts on social media.
Yep.
And I've just been so pumped for you guys. And then when I heard you were coming back here with that opportunity, I was pumped.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, dude, proud of everything you're doing. I love you guys. I love you. I love Lindsay. I love everything that you guys have done. And I'm glad that we were able to sit down and go through this.
Back at you, dude. There's, like I said, there's a handful of guys that that I consider just strong influences. You're absolutely one of them. Even though we're not like messaging back and forth all the time, like I respect the heck out of you. I appreciate everything. Like you're so knowledgeable in so many different areas, and like somebody that I just hope to be more and more like as I go through this journey.
Oh, dude, you're above me, bro. You don't want to stoop down to me.
You know,
dude.
I was thinking that it'll be fun for us to another 5 or 10 years from now look back at this and think, man, we thought we were doing good, and hopefully at that point we'll be even better and look at this and be like.
So in 5 years, dude, we'll set it in our phone. In 5 years, we'll bring you back on the podcast, huh? Because we're going to be doing this in 5 years still.
Absolutely. And we'll be growing and expanding and hopefully inspiring a lot of other people.
Exactly.
Sweet,
okay, dude. All right, we'll wrap it up right there, guys. If you're still with us through our last 10 minutes of banter back and forth.
Sorry.
Thanks for sticking with us. We'll tag Parker and everything. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to him, I'm sure you're open to that.
Absolutely.
And not, it doesn't even have to be dentistry. Maybe you're going to Canada for something. Maybe you're going to Nova Scotia for something else. Maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to tell them what to do if a tornado happens.
Share your tornado stories.
Yeah, jump on here and throw a comment in. So, yeah, dude, I'll say it again. Make sure you like the post if you got something out of it. Share the episodes. What am I missing? Like, share, comment.
Job,
all of that, right?
Just fix teeth.
I just fix teeth. I'm just a part-time safe salesman. That's what I tell people. So yeah, thanks for sticking with us last hour and 15 minutes, and we'll see you guys next week.